You guys ready? Everyone ready for some actual science here? Yeah, I had debated deleting this slide or actually talking about it, so I'm not going to take a long time, but I'm just going to point out that there are different types of epithelium, and I am going to be talking about a couple of these in this lecture, right? So there are either layers of epithelia that are called simple, and this is a single cell layer thick, or stratified, and these are stacked, all right? And then there are three shapes. So two layer types, simple or stratified. So simple is a single layer, stratified is stacked. And three shapes. Squamous, which you can interpret as squished. Yep, they're flat. So stratified squamous epithelia, that's what your skin is. You were asking about skin, what that's. And then there are cuboidal, they're the shape of a cube. And then there is columnar. The columnar are shaped like columns. So squished, cubes, columns. Simple, stratified. That's it. Don't worry about all this. Okay, moving on. Yeah. Connective tissue, overview. So there is connective tissue proper. So we're moving from epithelia into the second type of non-excitable tissue, connective. There's connective tissue proper, of which there's dense and loose. And then there's fluid connective tissue and supportive connective tissue. What does this stuff do? Well, a lot of things. It can bind your organs together, so tendons hold muscle to bone, ligaments hold bone to bone. They act to support the body, the bones and cartilage do. Physical protection, so cranium, ribs, and sternum. The fluid connective tissue is part of our immune system. Obviously, the bones provide a lever system for movement. Fat can act as a storage place for lipids. The bones can store calcium and phosphorus. We'll also talk about that a little bit in the next lecture, next PowerPoint. Heat production. So muscles are able to generate heat, but also the metabolism of brown fat in infants is one way that babies generate heat. I'm not going to talk about that because it doesn't really relate. Obviously, blood is transport, and then the connective tissue serves as the basal lamina, the stuff that underlies the epithelium to the rest of the body. It acts as the basal lamina. Another name. All of this was first codified by this German guy in the 1830s named Johannes Müller, the one that first coined the term connective tissue, a descriptive term. To him much at all. So these are the types of connective tissue that are relevant to what we're talking about. And I had covered these in lab. So a dense, regular tendon, elastic tissue. There's the loose connective, areolar, adipose. Areolar is the stretchy stuff that is like, for example, an adipose is fat tissue. I actually probably am not going to talk about it. And then the supportive connective, cartilage, two types. So I'm going to refer to these tissue types at different points throughout the semester. Okay. Of all of this connective tissue, so here is a sort of like a tree connecting the different types of connective tissue. So here's the proper with the dense and the loose, specialized fluid, which is blood, supportive. All of that is made up of only 9 types of cells. 9 types of cells, but only these 4 are going to be adipocytes. These are the ones that make up fat. And then these 3, which are all very related. We'll see them, how they're related. But there are mesenchymal cells, which you can think of mesenchymal cells as being, they are a stem cell. They are a stem cell that give rise to a lot of these other cell types. Okay? And then mesenchymal cells become fibroblasts, which themselves are a kind of a stem cell. We're not fully differentiated, not completely mature. Fibroblasts. So we'll see that. Just those 4 are the only ones that are really particularly relevant to our class. So adipocytes, they're fat cells. Each of them stores a large fat droplet. We saw them in lab. I'm not actually in depth than that. But when I talk about adipocytes, that's what. Mesenchymal cells, these are cells that get mobilized when there's some kind of inflammation in the body, when there's some kind of injury or infection, and then they can differentiate fibroblasts or other cell types. Yeah, you guys with me? Any questions here? Adipocytes are fat cells, mesenchymal cells are stem cells. And then fibroblasts. So fibroblasts, a lot of your body is made up of fibroblasts. They are the most abundant. And all connective tissue proper, whatever it is, whether it's dense, regular, loose, areolar, whatever, is going to have some kind of fibroblast. And they secrete a host of proteins and this stuff called hyaluronan, which is made of a molecule called hyaluronic acid. We're gonna, I don't know, I have a slide showing it later in this, what that stuff is, because I think it helps understand what cartilage is. We're going to talk quite a bit about cartilage. Cartilage is important in yoga. And then fibroblasts become fibrocytes. So this term, you may see this as a medical term. Any word that has blast in the as an ending to the word, it's a cell type that is like an adolescent. It's not fully developed. It's pretty functional. It's got a very unique function, but that function is different than when it becomes mature. All right? And if you see site on the end of a word, that's site just means cell. And so that is a mature cell of some sort. These are both cells that like to make fibrin, protein. That is a structural protein. So fibrocytes are just fibrin-producing cells. They're second most abundant, and they're going to help maintain the fibers. So when we talk about, at the end, when we're going to talk about this paper that you had a hard time understanding, and it had TGF beta 1 or beta 2, I don't remember which growth factor, but that growth factor is just a chemical key that turns on these cells, right? It turns on these cells to produce cellular products that are going to cause that tissue to be stiffer, that connective tissue to be stiffer or not. And stretching, yoga affects the ability of these cells to turn on or not. And that's what that paper will talk about. So the basic flow here is there's a mesenchymal stem cell that can get activated because of, I don't know, some sort of stressor environment. And then they can differentiate into a fibroblast, which, if needed, the right cues are environmental fibrocytes. So that's the All right, still good? So let's go over a couple of the fibers. We've talked about these in lab, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but collagen fibers, they're very common. There are many different collagen genes in the body, depending upon the exact place that fibrocyte finds itself. There's a lot of different collagen genes. It's straight, unbranched, resists force along the axis, whereas elastic fibers are branched, wavy, and elastic. All right, so these are the two characters that are going to give the tissue various properties that we're interested in. Just to see a better picture of it, I don't know if I showed a picture of what this stuff looked like, a cartoon. This is in lab, but here's collagen resisting its force along the length. So a collagen fiber is really small, 500. Zoom in on it, it's this triple braid, this twist of protein that acts kind of like a hawser cable, strong, stout. Whereas elastin is super stretchy. It's these like curly, cute proteins that are cross-linked. There's a lot of cross-linking, so it's kind of like a mesh. You ever seen like sort of like a rubber mesh that you can stretch, come back? It's a little bit like that. It has a memory. It comes back to the shape. Again, so we saw all this stuff in lab, but just to refresh your memory as to what we're looking at. There was dense, regular connective tissue. This was on the lab practical, I think. And when you look at it, it's just a lot of collagen fibers. A lot of collagen fibers in a row with fibroblasts first, and it acts as a stout form of strong connective tissue so that a muscle that it's connected to can contract and pull on a bone and make that bone. Densely packed, parallel collagen fiber. There is some elastic tissue that helps it. So this is what tendons and ligaments are made out of. Anything else here? Everybody cool? So elastic tissue, on the other hand, is made up of elastin. I showed you what elastin looks like 2 slides ago. And this is going to make ligaments that are super stretchy. All right. So for example, elastic tissue can be found in these elastic ligaments that go between the transverse processes of your vertebra. So when you do a side bend, one of these half moon things, it's getting stretched. It's allowing that spine, those transverse processes, to spread away from one another, and then it's helping pull them back towards one another, elastic. Yeah. So with time, that tissue can have a higher ratio of collagen laid down and a lower degree of elastin in those kinds of ligaments if they're not actually getting stretched, and you just lose range of motion. So, I mean, that's actually kind of what the paper is getting at. They're looking at injury-mediated inflammation, but it's also just being sedentary. So, the more you stretch tissue, you're gonna downregulate collagen production, make the tissue more pliable. Use it or lose it. So areolar tissue. areolar tissue is super duper common in the body. It's all over the place. And most of the connective tissue that we're going to talk about that's not bone or cartilage is this stuff. It's classified as loose connective tissue, and it is a very loosely organized conglomeration of fibers, blood vessels, a lot of empty space, although it's not empty. We'll talk about what it is. And a whole host of different cells, a lot of different connective cells, live in this loose sort of jelly stuff. So it's underneath all epithelia in various serous membranes, between muscles, passageways, vessels. It's all over this stuff. It's all over your body, everywhere. You're going to find some. Let's a little bit closer look. So here we see a cartoon of it. And in this cartoon, the yellow cables that are striped, those represent collagen fibers, and the little blue thin wavy lines, those are elastic fibers that run through areolar tissue. And you're going to have blood vessels. You see there's all kinds of other cell types in there. Doesn't really matter what all those cell types are, but you see a mesenchyme cell and a fibroblast. We talked about those. So they are definitely found in tissue. The empty space, that pink empty space in between everything, that's what we call ground substance. Ground substance. It is clear. It is colorless. It's not pink like you see there. And it's viscous. What does the word viscous mean? Give me an example of something that's viscous. Honey. Yeah, syrup. Motor oil. Yeah, molasses. Definitely viscous. So it's viscous like that. And there are a number of reasons for this. One of the big ones is that, say you get a scratch, so areolar tissue underlies, I said all epithelium, it's underneath your skin, the stratified squamous epithelium, that is your epidermis. So the top layer, the papillary layer of the dermis is areolar tissue. So you get a scratch. You don't take care of it. You don't wash it, don't put a Band-Aid on. You're going to get some bugs in there. Fortunately, and when I say bugs, I mean bacteria. You get bacteria in there, and fortunately, your body has evolved over the millennia, the countless ages, to have this mechanism for slowing them down. So those bugs have to swim through that stuff. Imagine, if you will, it's summertime, beautiful sun outside. You are in your backyard or your neighbor's backyard, someplace, city pool, and you are standing on the deep end of the pool. You're going to dive in. You dive into the pool, and you realize that the pool is made of Jell-O. Jell-O. Whoa, that's a lot of Jell-O. What would that be like, swimming through that pool? It'd be fun. It'd be weird. It would definitely be slow, a lot of work. Yeah, delicious, until you realize there is a giant cell that's like 1,500 times larger than your body swimming at you through the Jell-O to like consume you and destroy you, like this macrophage might be doing here. Like little bacterial macrophage is swimming through the Jell-O a lot faster than you to come and get you. Okay. Left you with that, the image. All right, ground substance. Any other questions in here? Oh, yeah, one of the things, this ground substance is made up of these things. And we're going to talk about these things a little bit later when we talk about how collagen functions, because some of them are also found in these things called glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans, glycoproteins. Yeah. Let's wait until we actually come to those. But they're part of. So then lastly, in our whirlwind tour of connective tissue are the supporting connective bone. And I'm going to dedicate a whole lecture to bone. It's calcified, it supports your weight, and it is importantly highly vascular. Highly vascular. On the other hand, there is cartilage, gel-type ground substance for shock absorption and protection. So the ground substance in cartilage is much thicker than superiority. Thick gel. It's like a gel. It's thick. Does anybody here like to cook? Anybody? Anyone make soup? Who makes soup? How do you make soup? Okay, cornstarch. What's another way? That's a good way. It's quick, fast. Cream. Bone broth. Tell me about that. What is that? Yeah. So a good way to make chicken soup if the weather gets cold. If the weather gets cold here. I imagine it's going to. It seems like it's heading in that direction. Yeah, you're excited, Mom. You're excited. Yeah. Well, you can't avoid the inevitable. It's a cycle, Priya. It's a cycle. Birth, life, death, regrowth, rebirth. You go to the store, you buy a pack of cheap chicken thighs with the skins on them, and for a couple bucks, and you chuck them in a pot of water, and you just boil those bad boys for half the day. You just sit them in there on a low simmer, boiling for like 6-8 hours. Come back, end of the day, your stove's on low. And you're going to have some thick broth. You're going to like strain all the stuff out, and then you'll chop up some vegetables, bring it to a boil. I like my vegetables kind of crisp in my chicken noodle soup, and then serve it up and put it in the fridge because I made enough for leftovers for the whole week. Come back, and the soup is like Jell-O, just like she described. It is solid thick, okay? That's because, and you just put it on the stove, heat it up, and it melts back down, right? But that's because we've boiled a lot of the cartilage down. We've boiled a lot of that cartilage down with super nutrients, right? It is so nutrient rich. All of those proteoglycans, those glycosaminoglycans, the hyaluronic acid, the chondroitin sulfate, all of these awesome, healthful molecules, biomolecules, most of them carbohydrates, actually, types of complex carbohydrates. They are in that stuff and have come out of that matrix, the ground substance, the cartilage. So, importantly, cartilage is avascular. What does that mean? No blood vessels. No blood vessels. So who's heard the thing, dry as a bone? Dry as a bone, yeah. Misnomer. Yes, dry as cartilage, that's right. Yeah, people just look at you weird. Yeah. It's all about the glycosaminoglycans, man. All right, let's have a little talk about some cartilage. What do you say? I am headed. I know. God, this feels like just an anatomy class. Where's the yoga? I'm getting there, kids. I'm getting there. I just gotta like get you on the same wavelength. So cartilage matrix. It's this gel-like stuff. It's made of proteoglycans that is made up from chondroitin sulfate. Chondroitin sulfate. What is that, you may ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. We'll look at that in a few slides. I'll show you what chondroitin sulfate looks like, how it works. But for now, you can just say, oh, proteoglycans derived from chondroitin sulfate. Let's see. And other ground substances. So there's this stuff in the matrix that gives it its particular properties that make cartilage so awesome. There are going to be chondrocytes. Chondrocytes. So when you see the prefix chondro, that chondro prefix, that just means cartilage. That's like the medically term. Wow, I thought cartilage was a sciencey term. Well, chondro is the prefix that means cartilage. And then we already know what cyte means. So a chondrocyte is simply a cartilage cell. And you may guess that there are chondroblasts. And in fact, in this picture here, this would be it. We may or may not actually get to that. Not actually. Yeah, Molly. Yeah. So cartilage is all over the place. There is cartilage. The ones that are most important to us are, there are two. There is the cartilage that is our discs. That's fibrocartilage. And there's the cartilage of the articular surface. And that is the surface where bone on bone in any kind of synovial joints. And that's any joint that moves. The surface of that bone is going to come in contact with another bone. And that is going to be mediated by hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage has this hyaluronic acid, which is why it's called. Yeah, there is elastic cartilage, which is like, makes your ears do this. This is why your ears feel kind of stiff, but they're not bone and they like spring back to where they were before. That's elastic cartilage. Not going to talk about it. Doesn't really matter. I just did a little bit, but that's all you're going to get. Yeah, there's cartilage in other places too, but those are the important ones. And it's really important. Talking about cartilage and joints. I mean, a lot of yoga, the musculoskeletal aspect of yoga is all about joints. So that's what we'll So chondrocytes, these cartilage cells, they're surrounded by lacuna. We talked about that in the lab. There's no blood vessels. I think I talked about this in lab as well. We'll blow that idea up some more. They produce a chemical that is an anti-angiogenesis factor. Anti-angiogenesis. Rama, you would not believe what we're talking about in class. We're talking about anti-angiogenesis factors. Wow. Some more chicken noodle soup. Anti-angiogenesis factors. That means anti, you know what that means. Angio means blood vessel. All right, it means blood vessel. And genesis means new growth. So an anti-angiogenesis factor is a chemical whose job it is to prevent the growth of new blood vessels. All right? Because one of the ways we make bone is to allow in babies, because babies are born kind of rubbery, right? They are. They're not all fully rock hard bone the way the rest of us are. They're a little bit, they're kind of cartilagey. They bend. No. We break, they bend. Yeah. I mean, don't try to go bend. Don't test it with a baby. But, you know, babies and even little kids, they like stand, fall. You know, stand, fall. You pick a baby up, you're doing something over here, baby falls. Oh my God. Don't drop the baby. No. Oh man, I have never actually dropped the baby, but my child fell out of a shopping cart and I almost had a heart attack. I almost died when my baby fell out of it. Yeah. It's like, she wasn't a baby, it was that one that like squishy, chunky one there. She like was moving fast, climbing. She could walk and was like, woo. Back. Yeah, she's fine. Yeah. She's smart and lovely. Yeah, mostly cartilage. But I was ready to have a heart. So, anyways, when the blood vessels move into cartilage and the angiogenesis factors aren't there, that's how the cartilage becomes bone. So, we're probably not going to talk about perichondrium. So the perichondrium, peri, when you see that prefix, it just means something on the outside of, like an outer layer of something. So perichondrium is outer layer on the cartilage. So for example, looking here at this little bit of this strip would be the perichondrium. This is a fibrous outer layer, gives it some strength. And the chondroblasts. I'm sorry, I live there. Yeah, hi. The pericardial cavity. Yeah, the pericardium. The pericardium is a serous membrane. Wow, is this you took anatomy in school? Yeah. So that pericardium is just a serous membrane on the outside of the heart. Peri just means a layer on the outside. Okay. But pericardium and perichondrium are totally different. Okay. Yep. All right, so let's just take a quick look at how cartilage can grow. So this is one of two ways. I'm only going to talk about this way because the other way doesn't. It's more for like babies and stuff. You have a chondrocyte that is embedded in its matrix. All right, it's ground substance, which is like gel, right? And it gets some kind of environmental cue, whatever that is, and that cue causes the cell to go through mitosis. So here it is for all of you in high school biology. The rest of you, doesn't matter, it's just dividing into two cells. Cell divides, there it is, and those two new cells begin to make more matrix, and the cartilage expands out that site where new cells are living in the same lacuna together. All right. Make sense? Cool. Oh, I guess I thought I was going to hide this one, but I guess I didn't. Well, cells can, let's also skip it. It's not important. Hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is found throughout the body. Molly had asked about it. Important ones for us are articular cartilage. So this type of cartilage has a lot of hyaluronic acid, and you can't see fibers in the matrix well as you can in the fibro. It's also part of your costal cartilage. That's the cartilage that's on the bottom margin of your rib cage. Here. Baby skeletons, fetal skeletons are made of that. Has anyone heard of your growth plate before? Yeah, that's called the epiphyseal line. The epiphyseal line is made of hyaline cartilage. Yeah. So what does it do? It helps, importantly, the articular cartilage eases joint. And so one of the long-term benefits of yoga in the last 5 seconds of class is that it helps nourish the hyaline cartilage that is part of these articular surfaces in your joints that makes motion better throughout your life. And we're going to pick up there. We'll keep going. All right. Any questions?